Morant with a running start. Elevates. Oh, it dunks. Oh, my goodness.
Tie game in overtime. Gasol will turn his heat. It's gone. Memphis on top. 7-10 remaining. Conley now with three. Count it. A 15-point lead for Memphis. And Blake Griffin gets into it on the floor with Randolph. Hard to tell if there are any punches being thrown under there, but Griffin took acceptance.
Adams going long. Morant. He hit it. John Morant. Insanity.
You gotta be kidding me.
Welcome to Grits and Grinds, a Memphis Grizzlies podcast. My name is Keith Parrish. We have found out who the Grizzlies are going to play in the first round of the playoffs. The Los Angeles Lakers are coming to Beale Street. The Los Angeles Lakers played a doozy of a play-in game on Tuesday night. They were down by as many as 15 points. They were playing a short-handed Timberwolves squad that was missing Rudy Gobert and Jaden McDaniels and Naz Reid. The Timberwolves team had some familiar faces to Grizzlies fans. Mike Conley had a huge game. Kyle Anderson had a huge game. But the Timberwolves collapsed down the stretch. They only managed 9 points in the fourth quarter until a slightly fishy foul call on Anthony Davis with a tenth of a second left. And Mike Conley made 3 clutch free throws. Still, that meant the Timberwolves only scored 12 points in the fourth quarter. Was it highly reminiscent of the playoff games last year where the Timberwolves collapsed in the fourth quarter over and over? Yes, of course it was. A heartbreaking loss for the Timberwolves where it looked like it might be a rematch from last season, but it's not. It's Grizzlies Lakers. It kicks off on Sunday at 2 p.m. on ABC. Should be an awesome matchup. And, of course, it's the league's premier marquee franchise, Los Angeles Lakers, against a young, good Grizzlies team that's from a small market, and so it's going to get a lot of national attention. Of course, this is LeBron James returning to the playoffs after missing it last year, and I think as Grizzlies fans, we might get tired of the fact that a lot of people are going to pick the Lakers to win, and I want to tell you, on this episode, as I go through the stats, I don't think that is a disrespectful thing to do. This Lakers team is good, and I think it's going to be a very tough matchup. So on this episode, I'm going to go through some of my initial thoughts on the matchup with the Lakers. I'm going to present to you some statistics that I've looked up about how these teams could match up and how the series could go. Then, of course, as always, I invite you to make your own decisions about what you think. One of the difficulties of previewing this series is that we just don't have a lot of data on either one of these teams. Of course, the Grizzlies are not basically who they were all season because of the injury to Steven Adams. When you think about this Grizzlies team this year and last year, one of their big strengths was being an elite offensive rebounding team. They were arguably the best offensive rebounding team in the NBA with Steven Adams. Now there's no Steven Adams. There's no Brandon Clark, and there's not going to be any Steven Adams. The team still, weirdly, has not actually officially given a PR update to the Adams injury and prognosis, but after the Woj tweet saying he's basically out for the whole postseason, Taylor Jenkins echoed that fact at media availability, saying, yeah, he's basically out, and we're not sure what the plan is going to be for him going into the offseason. But this team without Steven Adams is actually bad at offensive rebounding. They're bad at defensive rebounding. And so we try to look at the stats of like what this Grizzlies team is now, and since Steven Adams got hurt, we don't have a lot of data. There's only been 15 games since Steven Adams got hurt where John Morant, Desmond Bane, Dillon Brooks, and Jaren Jackson Jr. have all played together. And a lot of those games were against bad teams. A lot of those games were against teams resting all their players. That's not the Grizzlies' fault. That's a result of the NBA schedule. That is just what the regular season is now. You never know if you're going to get to play full-strength teams or not. And now on the Lakers side of things, the Lakers, as everyone knows, started 2-10 this year. They made some big moves at the trade deadline. They brought in talent. They brought in Jared Vanderbilt. They brought in D'Angelo Russell. They got rid of Russell Westbrook. They added Malik Beasley. They also played a lot of games after the trade deadline without LeBron James because LeBron James was injured. So we don't have a lot of data for what the Lakers actually are. Since the All-Star break, the Lakers have the second best record in the NBA. The Grizzlies have the fourth best record, tied for the fourth best record since the All-Star break. Of course, post-All-Star break basketball is just a mixture of some teams trying to win, many teams trying to lose, a lot of teams who have their spot locked up resting. So it's hard to draw too many firm conclusions about all these games. If you think it's a disrespectful thing for people to pick the Lakers as the 7 seed over the 2 seed Grizzlies, I just humbly ask you to consider the fact that, yeah, the Grizzlies are the 2 seed, but they won 51 games, which is not like an overwhelming dominant run through the regular season. We're talking about a team that won 51 games and a team that won 43 games that, oh, by the way, has perhaps the greatest basketball player of all time on their team. You can't just say the Lakers, they're a 43-win 7 seed. You have to acknowledge, well, when LeBron James and Anthony Davis play, 2 Hall of Fame guys, they're much, much better than that. So I do think right now, as I look at the stats and I consider my personal opinions, I do think it's going to be a very close series. I think there are a lot of advantages for the Grizzlies, and I'll get into those in just a second. But I think there are some scary statistics about how these teams match up that highlight that this could be very, very tough. Let's start, and this might not be that instructive, but let's start looking at the season series. The Lakers won the season series 2-1. The home team won every matchup. The first game was the famous Shannon Sharpe game. We had a Grizzlies watch party for that one. It was very, very long and ended up terribly, of course, as the Grizzlies blew that game. Dennis Schroeder got a big steal, lived at the foul line down the stretch, and the Grizzlies collapsed in the final 2 minutes, not totally unlike the Timberwolves. Dillon Brooks was god-awful in this game. That game was the first time all season the Grizzlies had lost a game where they led by 10 at any point. It honestly kicked off kind of a losing spiral for the Grizzlies. So that was a highly publicized, ugly loss for the Grizzlies at LA. Game 2 between the Grizzlies and Lakers. This was the Ja Morant 28-point third quarter game. That's the most points not only in a quarter in Grizzlies franchise history, that's the most points any player scored in a quarter in the NBA this season. The Grizzlies in that game were full strength, or their new full strength. No Steven Adams, but everybody else played. The Lakers did not have LeBron James. So, behind a massive game from Ja and a massive historic quarter, the Grizzlies win by 12. Game 3 was in early March. No Ja Morant, no LeBron James. The Lakers won by 9 in Los Angeles. Desmond Bane had a very off game for him. Dillon Brooks was, once again, god-awful. So like that 3-game collection from this season, it doesn't bode well for the Grizzlies, but it's also just 3 random regular season games. I think the most notable things from those games, we can highlight it. I'm a huge Dillon Brooks fan, so I don't mind saying this. Dillon Brooks was terrible in those games, at least on offense. You could say, oh, but he has to guard LeBron James. Well, he didn't in 2 of the 3 games. LeBron only played 1 of these 3 games. Dillon in the 3 games against the Lakers this year shot 24.4% from the field. Also, the role players really struggled in these 3 specific matchups with the Lakers this year. Luke Kennard played in 2 of the games. He was 3 for 11. Roddy was 1 for 5. John Conchar was 2 for 8. Zaire Williams was 2 for 9. Many of those guys aren't going to play every game of this series or perhaps play at all in this series. So that's not that instructive. As far as what we think might happen now that these teams are going to shorten the rotation and be able to game plan for each other, I think it's going to be a knockdown, drag-out fight. Dillon Brooks had a very fun quote on Tuesday. Said to Mark Giannotto, he told him that, I wouldn't mind LeBron in a 7-game series. The legacy is there. First time back in the playoffs. Knock him out right away in the first round. It'll test us good. That'll be a good first-round matchup for us. Now, I don't think that quote is very incendiary, even if Bleacher Report and the other news aggregators run graphics with it in a gigantic font. I wouldn't mind LeBron in a 7-game series. That's not a soundbite or a controversial quote. That is Dylan saying we're most likely to play the Lakers, and I wouldn't mind it. As a Grizzlies fan, when you think about playing the Lakers, yeah, I dread losing to them. I dread getting upset by a 7 seed, regardless of anyone, actually specifically as a Lakers 7 seed. But the idea of beating the Lakers is great. The path to glory, to say you're a team that eliminated LeBron James and Anthony Davis in the playoffs, it's a huge test for the Grizzlies. As Dylan Brooks said, quote, it'll test us good. So it is a huge test for this young Grizzlies team, and as competitors, they're fired up about the opportunity to play. Now, I think when we look at the matchup between the Lakers and the Grizzlies, if we look at different categories, the teams are somewhat similar. Like I said, since the All-Star break, they had very similar records. Both teams are not particularly great at half-court offense, although I'll dive a little bit more into that in a second. Both teams are not particularly great at effective field goal percentage. For this season, the Lakers are 19th in points per half-court offensive possession. The Grizzlies are 22nd. But the points per offensive possession in the half-court are within like a couple tenths of a point. Same thing for effective field goal percentage. The Lakers finished 18th in effective field goal percentage. The Grizzlies were 0.2 of a percentage point behind them, finished 21st, but it's so close that's a toss-up to me. The Lakers' advantages, beyond having LeBron James and Anthony Davis, the Lakers have a huge rebounding advantage. That is one thing that sticks out. The Lakers are going to have a big advantage on both the offensive and defensive glass. A lot has been made about the Lakers having the league's best free throw disparity. This is going to be a big issue. The Lakers are going to have a huge advantage probably getting to the foul line. As far as which team is the better defensive team, there's a lot of numbers that can go both ways. Since the Grizzlies lost Steven Adams, so this is from January 23rd on, the Grizzlies are 9th overall in defense, and the Lakers are 5th. I'm using the same time frames for the Lakers because it's basically 2 weeks before the trade deadline, so we can just kind of use that as an approximation of what these teams might be. So since Steven Adams got hurt, the Grizzlies are 9th in defense, the Lakers are 5th. The Grizzlies are 17th in offense over that same period. The Lakers are 18th in offense. The Grizzlies are 11th in non-garbage time point differential. The Lakers are 9th. So you're seeing a slight advantage for the Lakers in these stats. One stat that favors the Grizzlies is the Grizzlies are good at not turning the basketball over. The Lakers also are not good at forcing turnovers. So those things are working together for the Grizzlies' advantage. Grizzlies take care of the basketball. The Lakers do not force a lot of turnovers. Conversely, the Lakers are kind of okay at taking care of the basketball. The Grizzlies are good at forcing turnovers. So that should be in the favor of the Grizzlies. 3-point shooting favors the Grizzlies, and that is a wild thing to say as a Grizzlies fan. Since the trade deadline, the Grizzlies are 7th in three-pointers per game. They're making 13.4 three-pointers per game. This is since they acquired Luke Kennard. The Lakers are 18th over that stretch, 11.4 made threes per game. For the entire season, if you want to do it that way, the Grizzlies are 16th in made threes, 12 per game. The Lakers are 24th, 10.8 per game. The Grizzlies have a significant 3-point advantage over the Lakers. This is certainly the first time in my entire life the Grizzlies have had a 3-point shooting advantage in a playoff series. Another big advantage for the Grizzlies. Let's talk about another big advantage for the Grizzlies, or just the specific matchups, a couple of the specific matchups. This looks to be on paper an excellent matchup for Ja Morant. Ja Morant scored a ton of points against the Lakers in the regular season. He also did it on a ton of shots. He averaged 29 field goal attempts per game against the Lakers this year. That's too many, let's be real. But in Ja's postseason career, he's been awesome. He's been huge in the play-in games. He's been big in the playoffs specifically. In 14 career playoff games, he's averaging over 28 points per game and over 9 assists per game. He's the only player in NBA history to have playoff averages over 28 points per game and 9 assists per game. You would think the more he plays, those will probably come down. Sure, they might come down. But he's played 14 playoff games, and he's been a monster in all of them. He struggled a bit in the Timberwolves series last year. They threw Jaden McDaniels, Anthony Edwards, Patrick Beverley at him. He had a lot of trouble, but he got a lot of assists, and he eventually figured it out, it seemed like. He was massive against the Warriors last year. Of course, only played 3 games before getting hurt. In those 3 games against the Warriors, he became the only player in NBA playoff history to have 3 consecutive games with at least 30 points, 3 made threes, and 3 steals. So Ja Morant has been a playoff juggernaut. We know he's an all-NBA level talent. And the Lakers don't really have anyone who can guard him. Dennis Schroeder's probably their best option. They might switch Jared Vanderbilt onto him sometimes, but honestly, Jared Vanderbilt's going to get cooked. It's not going to work for him. Also, Desmond Bane is a huge problem for the Lakers. Desmond Bane has also proven himself in the playoffs. He is a 49% three-point shooter in the playoffs in his career. Last year against the Timberwolves, Desmond Bane averaged 23.5 points per game on 50, 49, 90 splits. He gave us a glimpse last season of the leap he would take this season. He struggled with the back injury against the Warriors, but was still big in games 5 and 6 of that series when he finally healed up a little bit. The Grizzlies' backcourt is a huge advantage for them. Ja Morant and Desmond Bane should score a ton. I expect them to score a lot in this series as the Lakers probably struggle to find a way to stop them. Of course, one way that the Lakers are going to stop them is probably by limiting the Grizzlies to just one shot on the offensive end. Again, the Lakers a pretty good defensive rebounding team, and the Grizzlies without Steven Adams, a terrible offensive rebounding team. So the Lakers should dominate the glass there. Now, the flip side, you think of the Lakers' best players, of course, LeBron James, Anthony Davis. Dillon Brooks, I think, can do a passable job on guarding LeBron as much as anyone can. He's going to make LeBron James work. LeBron James' career stats against the Grizzlies since they've had Dillon Brooks are not that impressive. LeBron James hasn't scored 30 against the Grizzlies since 2020. Of course, if you want to flip these stats around, Dillon Brooks in his career against LeBron James, 32% from the field. Yikes. Not great, Bob. But Dillon can do a passable job as much as anyone can on LeBron James. And then the Grizzlies, as far as matchups, are going to put Xavier Tillman on Anthony Davis. Of course, both those matchups, huge advantage for the Lakers. Any matchup. LeBron James and Anthony Davis against anyone, that's advantage Lakers. But I think the fact that the Grizzlies can decently match up as far as, all right, Tillman hopefully can hamper Anthony Davis somewhat. Tillman is an excellent one-on-one defender. His limitations, size, explosiveness. He's not particularly a good defensive rebounder just because of, I think, his lack of size, again, in the jumping. For a center, he's not elite at defensive rebounds. Pretty good offensive rebounder. But he's a very good one-on-one defender. We're going to see Tillman guard LeBron sometimes. I'm almost certain of it. When Anthony Davis is off the court and Tillman's on the court, Tillman he's going to take some shots or have his opportunity to guard LeBron. But as far as the starters matching up, we can say Dillon's going to guard LeBron, Tillman's going to guard Anthony Davis, Jaren Jackson Jr. is going to be hid on Jared Vanderbilt, much like the Timberwolves tried to hide Karl Anthony Towns on Jared Vanderbilt. Of course, Cat in the play-in game still committed a bunch of dumb fouls and wasn't on the court as much as they wanted him to be because of foul trouble. And then the Grizzlies, Bane and Ja, they're going to guard Schroeder, or if it's D'Lo guarding D'Lo, Austin Reeves. Those matchups, backcourt matchups, hugely favor the Grizzlies. The front court favors, I think, again, you would assume the Lakers, but as far as you can match up well against AD and LeBron, the Grizzlies have some good options there. Another thing in favor of the Grizzlies, and then I'm going to start getting to things that favor the Lakers big time. Another thing that favors the Grizzlies is transition opportunities. Now, In the playoffs, the adage is the game slows down. There's fewer transition opportunities. But the fact that the Grizzlies, one, on their end, take care of the basketball, and the Lakers aren't good at forcing turnovers, and then the Grizzlies force a lot of turnovers, and the Lakers are prone to turn the ball over a little bit, and then the Lakers are not particularly good at stopping transition opportunities, and the Grizzlies are elite at getting out in transition, and they're elite at scoring in transition. LeBron James is, in fact, pretty old, and I think one way he can get beat is up and down the court. So if the Grizzlies can get stops, and that's a big if because of the rebounding problems, the Lakers themselves are elite at getting out in transition off of defensive rebounding opportunities, according to the cleaning the glass transition stats. But the Grizzlies, I think, can win the fast break points and score a lot and probably have some pretty solid runs just getting offense in transition. That's something that favors the Grizzlies in my mind. Another stat that says these teams kind of closely match up, and it's not one I expected, was some of the clutch stats this year. Now, I don't love clutch stats. If you're a listener, you know this. This year in the clutch, the Grizzlies are 21-15. This is, of course, defined by the NBA as games within 5 points with 5 minutes left. The Grizzlies 21-15, a 58% winning percentage. The Lakers were 23-21, a 52% winning percentage. But net rating in clutch time, the Grizzlies are actually way negative. The Lakers were positive for their clutch time, 12th in clutch net rating. Grizzlies are 20th. I think half-court clutch moments, and this, honestly, the stats don't bear this out this year, but I'm going to go ahead and use just my brain and my basketball knowledge of years of basketball. I think half-court clutch moments favor the Lakers greatly. I think in a close game, with the Lakers' ability to get to the foul line, with them having, LeBron James, that favors the Lakers a lot in this matchup, and that's a big deal in a playoff series. Which team can perform the best when it slows down and you're just scratching and clawing, desperately hoping for a basket at the end of the game, and you're hoping for a whistle? I think that's a big arrow pointing in the Lakers' favor. But here is a stat I did not expect. This is a funny stat, which again points out to me how the arbitrarily defined clutch stats are useless a lot of times. Which team do you think leads the NBA in clutch free throw rate? It's the Grizzlies. The Grizzlies lead the NBA in clutch free throw rate this year. The Lakers are 22nd. I think that stat is useless. It surprised me, and I thought it was funny. The Lakers are going to get to the line more. The Grizzlies are not particularly good at getting to the line. The Lakers are elite at it. I don't think it's a conspiracy when the Lakers have more free throws than the Grizzlies, at least not yet. Ask me again in a couple of weeks. Another stat that's very close that's also kind of funny. This season, the Grizzlies shoot 26% on clutch three-point attempts, and the Lakers shoot 30% on clutch three-point attempts. Let's go. Of course, all these clutch stats are for the full season. And again, they don't mean that much because the Lakers added players. The Lakers got off to a slow start. And then after the Lakers added their players, like I said, LeBron missed a lot of games. And the Grizzlies, of course, haven't played that many games with their main guys all together. Now, one way that we can compare these teams, and I think can be reflective of what we're actually going to see on the court, is using cleaning the glasses tool where we can filter the lineups to only show the stats for the players who are currently on the team and probably going to be playing the main minutes, and I will get to them right after this short break. If you are in the Middle Tennessee area, do not miss our Grizzlies watch party for Game 1 of their series against the Lakers. We will be at Noble's Beer Hall on Sunday, April 16th. The game tips off at 2 p.m. Everyone in attendance will receive either a Grizzlies playoff koozie or Grizzlies playoff sunglasses. We will also be giving away other very special Grizzlies prizes. Invite a friend, come down to Noble's Beer Hall, enjoy some drink specials, and watching the Grizzlies with fellow members of Grizzlies Nation. Again, Noble's Beer Hall in Nashville, Tennessee, 2 p.m. on Sunday, April 16th. See you there. All right, before I get to some of these lineup stats for both teams, I think it's useful for us Grizzlies fans to talk about just the playoff rotation, what we expect to see, the obvious things we know. We have 4 best players: Ja Morant, Desmond Bane, Dillon Brooks, Jaren Jackson Jr. Of course, those guys are going to start and close every game. Who's the 5th starter going to be? Like I said previously with the matchups that I think favor the Grizzlies, or not favor the Grizzlies, but make sense for the Grizzlies, I think with the Lakers presumably starting Anthony Davis and Jared Vanderbilt, you're going to start with Xavier Tillman out there. You're not going to go with this Luke Kennard in the starting lineup thing. I don't think it makes sense. I think you have to start with Tillman on AD to try to save Jaren Jackson Jr. from foul trouble. So I do think the Grizzlies will go with their traditional starting lineup that's been the case since there's been no Steven Adams of Ja, Desmond, Dillon, Jaren, and Xavier Tillman. Now, off the bench, I think we know for a fact that Tyus Jones, Santi Aldama, and Luke Kennard are going to play. Santi Aldama, of course, dealing with the elbow injury he suffered against the Pelicans. As far as his status for this game, I could be incorrect, but I don't believe it's been updated. Without question, though, Santi Aldama is going to be needed, and if healthy, will play. Now, who will the 9th player in the rotation be, or will they go 10 deep as they have done in most of their playoff games under Taylor Jenkins? I think 9th, it comes down to John Konchar or David Roddy. I think David Roddy has one specific advantage over Konchar when you're picking who might play, and that is girth and size and strength. I think Roddy's size is going to be more of an asset against LeBron. I think Dillon is going to get in foul trouble. I think Jaren's going to get in foul trouble, and you probably will need David Roddy to play defense on LeBron. Now, if we're not talking about specifically guarding LeBron, my controversial opinion and take is I think I would play Konchar over David Roddy. Yes, this is the same Konchar who essentially has been in like a 35-game scoring slump and cannot score at all usually. Here's my thought process. You can poke holes in it if you want. Konchar, he's basically the same level of shooter. He averages more points per shot. He shoots better percentages, but he shoots less. So maybe Roddy's more of an offensive threat, or Roddy is more of an offensive threat. But Konchar can knock down threes. Konchar has some playoff experience. Konchar is better at passing the ball. Konchar commits fewer turnovers. Konchar is better at steals, and Konchar is way better at rebounding. All of that stuff makes me think, all right, if we're going to have a 9th guy or a 10th guy, I'd probably lean Konchar in most situations. The one situation, which I will say is an exception, is if the other team has LeBron James. I think we might need Roddy out there. But all that to say, we've now hit the point of the Grizzlies depth chart that I don't trust. I don't trust David Roddy or John Konchar in the postseason. But for the sake of an exercise of trying to predict the Grizzlies rotation and trying to come up with some lineup data that we think can be useful for comparing these teams, that's basically the rotation I'm thinking about. The obvious starters, where we're including Tillman, not Kennard as a starter. And then the bench is Tyus Jones, Santi Aldama, Luke Kennard, and then Roddy and or Konchar. Despite Kenneth Lofton Jr. scoring 42 points in the final game of the regular season, I doubt he plays a role unless it's a break glass in case of emergency thing where either a big is in foul trouble or hopefully not injured, and or the Grizzlies are losing and just need a random spark. Also, by the way, supporting my Konchar feeling, the Lakers have such a huge rebound advantage on paper that I think anything you can do to have a above average rebounder for their position play might be important. But now, so what I've done is using those 10 players for the Grizzlies. I'm looking at lineup data when only those 10 players are playing. Since we don't have Steven Adams, we don't have Brandon Clark, I'm not going to include them. I'm also going to take out all the random rookie minutes. And if you look at the Grizzlies stats, when you just use 5-man lineup combinations consisting of their top 10 in their rotation, the Grizzlies have a plus 7.4 net rating this season, a 119.4 offensive rating, which is very good, a 112 defensive rating, which is also good. They're good at forcing turnovers. They are great at not turning the basketball over. And again, like I've been talking about, they're poor at rebounding. They're weak at getting to the line. They're okay at not fouling. And they got a pretty good field goal percentage defense. With just these top 10 players, the Grizzlies in the half court, their half court offensive numbers are actually pretty good. They're in the 78th percentile as far as points per play in the half court if you just look at lineups using their 10 best available players. So pretty good offensive numbers, pretty good defensive numbers, pretty good half-court numbers, and also great half-court defensive numbers. They are an elite defensive team in the half-court. For this season, this is just general numbers, no longer filtered by just the top 10 in the rotation that are healthy. The Grizzlies are the number one half-court defense in the league this season. Also, going back to the things that I think favor the Grizzlies, when you just look at the stats using their top 10 of their rotation, they are awesome at transition points and transition opportunities. All right, now let's do the same exercise with the Lakers. I'm using the Lakers top 10 presumed depth chart. This is LeBron James and Anthony Davis, Jared Vanderbilt, Austin Reeves, Dennis Schroeder, and then I guess I'm including D'Angelo Russell, Malik Beasley, Rui Hachimura, Troy Brown, and Wenyen Gabriel. Now, I think it's highly possible Wenyen Gabriel gets some DNPs. I think it's possible some of these guys eventually get left out of the rotation completely. Maybe Troy Brown, I don't know. But just doing the same general exercise, looking at Lakers lineup stats using only players who are currently on the team that we're guessing are their top 10 of the rotation. So no more Russell Westbrook stats in this. The Lakers have a plus 6.9 net rating. So again, the same exercise for the Grizzlies. They were plus 7.4 net rating. The Lakers are plus 6.9 net rating. The Lakers are 117.6 on offense, so almost 2 points per 100 possessions worse than the Grizzlies at offense, and 110.7 defensive rating. So about 1.5 points better on defense than the Grizzlies per 100 possessions. These lineups have an incredible free throw rate. We already know that's an advantage for the Lakers. They have a very good offensive rebounding rate. They are elite at not fouling. They are elite at grabbing defensive rebounds. So all of that, I think, shows how close these two teams can be. Weirdly, and this doesn't make sense to my brain, weirdly, the Lakers half-court offense with just their top 10 of the rotation is worse than the Grizzlies. Now, you could say, all right, this is good. I'm starting to feel pretty good. Go Grizzlies, we got this. Now, we can go one step further, which I think we should when isolating these stats. Let's not just take the top 10 players from each team and say, hey, what are the stats when any of these five guys are on the court? Let's narrow it down to the guys we know who are actually going to be on the court. And this is where the stats don't look good for the Grizzlies. Because here's the thing. We don't care about the Lakers' top 10. We care about what do the Lakers look like when LeBron James and Anthony Davis are on the court. Because LeBron James and Anthony Davis are going to be on the court. If you do the same exercise I did, but you make all the lineups include Anthony Davis and LeBron James. So what I'm doing is any five-man Lakers lineups where it's LeBron James, Anthony Davis, and the other three players are any of the remaining top seven in the rotation. Those seven players being Jared Vanderbilt, Austin Reeves, Dennis Schroeder, Malik Beasley, Troy Brown Jr., Rui Hachimura, and Wenyen Gabriel. If the Lakers have LeBron James and Anthony Davis and any three of those other seven guys, this season their net rating is plus 20. That stat is highly concerning. That is an alarm bell. As a Grizzlies fan, I hate that stat. The sample size is nearly 600 possessions. So it's enough. It's significant. Now, you can play the same game with the Grizzlies. We know, we hope Ja, Desmond, and Jaren are on the court. Also probably Dylan. Like Ja, Des, Dylan, and Jaren, plus any other player from their top 10. We only get 369 possessions this season, and guess what? The Grizzlies' net rating is slightly negative. I'm not panicking on that one. I don't think that is super reflective of who the Grizzlies are. But it certainly isn't positive. If you remove Dylan Brooks from this, Dylan Brooks, who had a below-average season for his standards, especially offensively, although Dylan might honestly make an all-defensive team. So Dylan guards the best player every night. We appreciate him for doing that. But if you just isolate the stats of if it's Ja, Dez, and Jaren, and then you take any two players from the Grizzlies' top 10, then you get up to a plus 10 net rating. which is good. But when you compare it to the Lakers lineup stats, that becomes much more concerning. Now, unfortunately, I don't have the information, and I'm not a Lakers expert, and I don't watch every one of their games closely. So I don't know how much of that really impressive lineup data, you could poke holes in against the specific opponent, or maybe there are some weird things where they're really getting boosted by a random Troy Brown Jr. hot shooting night. But very simply, when you look at these lineup stats, a lot of times you have a assumption of what they're going to say. And I think we assume when we say, all right, LeBron James plus Anthony Davis on the court, the stats are going to be good. And then when I filtered them for the guys who might actually play with them, turns out the stats were amazing. And so that part is going to be extremely challenging for the Grizzlies. Would I pick the Lakers based on this information? It's way too early for me to have that opinion. My initial thought, and again, my thought after watching them struggle with the Timberwolves, was the Grizzlies should be fine. The Grizzlies have home court advantage, which is a big advantage for them. The Grizzlies, of course, had the best home court record in the NBA this season. They had the most home wins for any team since the 2017 Warriors. 36 wins at home, so the Grizzlies have home court advantage. Yes, they lost game ones of both of their series last season at home. Hopefully they can learn from that and maybe go ahead and shorten that rotation before the series starts, Taylor. But in summary, and I'm going to do more of these previews. I'm having Chris Harrington come on later this week. I'm going to talk with some Lakers people later this week. I'm going to keep looking into more stats. Initial impressions, the Grizzlies should have a 3-point advantage. The Grizzlies should have a backcourt scoring advantage. The Lakers are going to have trouble slowing down Ja Morant and Desmond Bane. The Grizzlies could have a defensive advantage in the half court, although both of these teams are very evenly matched. The Grizzlies should have a turnover advantage. They should have an advantage in transition. And now the Lakers are going to have a massive free throw advantage, a massive rebounding advantage, and they have LeBron James, and that's a big deal. They have Anthony Davis. That's a big deal. Either way, I think it's going to be an awesome series. When we think about, again, the Grizzlies, I take comfort in the fact that Jaren, which maybe this is the X factor. Jaren Jackson Jr. probably an X factor. Yes, will he get in foul trouble? Will he be able to play 36 to 40 minutes? That is, a huge part of the story. If you tell me Jaren Jackson Jr. averages 38 minutes for the series, yeah, I think the Grizzlies win. I think Jaren Jackson Jr. is that good. I think Jaren Jackson Jr. is incredible. If he can play 38 minutes, which is obviously a huge if, the Grizzlies should not have that much trouble. I'd say Grizzlies in 5 or 6. But we all assume he's going to have big-time foul trouble in a couple of games. But beyond the foul issues with Jaren, which nationally, of course, are overstated, but they're real. We don't have to pretend they're not real. Jaren's late season blossoming as a dominant offensive player, of scoring over 30 multiple times, of averaging, 24 points over his last 15 games or so. If Jaren's offensive leap he's shown in the last month of the season, if that is legitimate, well, that's a whole different ballgame. Because I believe in playoff Ja Morant. Ja Morant has proven it to me, and the Lakers can't guard him. I believe in playoff Desmond Bane. He's proven it to me. The Lakers also can't guard him. If you pair that with the Jaren we've seen recently, not only the 3 blocks per game, but the 22 points per game, that's going to be a world of hurt for the Lakers. And you combine the Grizzlies, I think, athletic advantage, being younger, quicker, faster. That starts having me thinking very optimistically about the playoffs for the Grizzlies. Also, by the way, Luke Kennard. I think this is somewhat notable. Luke Kennard in his playoff career, he shoots 44% from 3. Hasn't played a ton of playoff games, but I kind of trust that his red-hot shooting, it's legitimate. I mean, the man over 49% for the year, 53% from 3 on the Grizzlies. I trust Luke Kennard making shots. So I trust Ja. I trust Bane. Jaren, it's a question mark. Last year in the playoffs, his 2-point percentage was terrible. He was seemingly in foul trouble the entire Warriors series and Timberwolves series. I didn't double check that, but that's my memory. I hope I haven't been letting the national media affect my honest memories. I know he got in a lot of foul trouble in the Timberwolves series. The previous year against the Jazz, that was an injury-plagued season. He was awful in the playoffs. So Jaren postseason performance, for me, that's a question mark. Dylan Brooks, roller coaster as always. I already told you in his career against LeBron James, 32% from the field. Last year, he very notably, you could say, shot the Grizzlies out of Game 4 against the Warriors down the stretch of that game. Had a terrible field goal percentage for the entire playoffs. But the year before, against the Jazz, he was 25 points per game on awesome efficiency against the Jazz. He claims he was hurt last year, by the way, against the Warriors. That's a claim I had never heard him make until about a month ago. So I don't know if I believe it. So Dylan Brooks, a little bit of a question mark, playoff-wise, although I think I have more confidence and faith than most people do. He has accepted a role as like the fourth option, so I don't worry about him, shooting the Grizzlies out of a game or anything. And he is going to, I think, he's going to make LeBron James work. And that is invaluable for the Grizzlies. Everything else on the team, huge question marks. Santi Aldama is going to be asked to do a lot. I like the fact that Xavier Tillman got a lot of playoff experience last year, even if at the time I desperately did not want him to be playing. But he did play last year. He got his feet wet. He also had that huge play-in moment. He's done things in the postseason, the play-in moment against the Warriors. Xavier hopefully will be a calming presence with the playoff experience he has. Tyus Jones, he hit some big shots against the Timberwolves last year, but other than that, very up and down. The large majority of his playoff games on the Grizzlies, I think you would call not very good. His shooting percentage, 38% from the field on the Grizzlies in the playoffs. Of course, all this remains true for the Lakers. Beyond LeBron and Anthony Davis, you're telling me you trust Malik Beasley? You trust D'Angelo Russell? D'Angelo Russell was horrible against the Timberwolves, a Timberwolves team that decided they had to get rid of him, and they traded him to the Lakers, and then the Lakers basically stopped playing him. Like, are you going to trust Troy Brown Jr.? No. You going to trust Rui Hachimura? I'm not worried about him. Austin Reeves, can he do this in the postseason? I mean, that's a question mark. Austin Reeves is a very good player. Beyond AD and LeBron, I think it's a lot of big question marks for the Lakers. I mean, other X factor things, I don't know. Coaching, does coaching favor the Grizzlies? Probably, maybe. Hard to say. But I do know I think this is going to be a very tough series. I don't expect the Grizzlies to win in 5. I mean, maybe when it tips off, the Grizzlies all of a sudden look, hey, we're way faster. We're way more athletic. They can't slow us down. And, oh, by the way, yeah, we've been the 2 seed for 2 consecutive years. This team fought to make the playoffs. Why did everyone think we weren't going to mop the court with them? Hopefully that happens, but I'm not totally expecting it. Anyways, that's all I got for today. Again, going to be coming out with a lot of playoff content the rest of this week. And then, of course, once the playoffs actually start, I'm heading to some of the games in person, some of the watch parties in Nashville. Make sure you catch them, especially the one on Sunday that we know the date of, Sunday at 2 p.m. I won't be there, but I hope if you can't make the game in Memphis and you're in Nashville, you come out to Noble's Beer Hall to cheer for the Grizzlies. Please, everybody, subscribe to the Grits and Grinds YouTube channel. Thanks to everyone who's already done that. Anyways, have a great Wednesday. Talk to you soon. Go Grizz.